it's about time. It's about whether it's the right time, and it's about whether the families of those people on board the aeroplane want you to tell that story, and that's something that you don't know till you ask, and you don't ask until you think it's the right time, and that right time, I thought, was now. In the end, what you have to do is go and see the families of those who were on board that plane. They're the ones ultimately who appropriately can answer that question.
With the film, well, I went to the first meeting and, spoke to you right away, and we worked out a plan to get in touch with somebody from every single family, which, although challenging, I knew that it could be accomplished, and I think you did too. And I think it's important that everybody be, spoken to who you possibly can speak to about these things.
It has only been 4 years, and or almost 5 years by the time it'll come out. Which might seem like a lot of time, but for the families, it seems like yesterday.
That's a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? It's an honor seeing someone trying to portray your brother and honoring them, but also it brings back the loss that he's not here.
You don't want to put yourself back in that moment or think about that moment, especially for us as family members. Physically and mentally, it's difficult to take. Even talking today, it will take me hours to recover.
You never expect something like that to happen. You hear people say, well, that's not going to happen to me, the odds are. Well, living proof that, the odds can be against you. I always look at it like I'm doing this in my mother's name, save her memory, to make sure that these people are honored. They sacrificed their lives to save many more people.
Do you find that you get angry?
Yeah, I get angry. I don't get as angry as I used to, but I do get angry at our government for not being more diligent in their jobs. And that makes me angry at times, when you read all the reports about what they knew, what they didn't know, and how maybe they could have done something to prevent this from happening. And, just the fact that these people got on board an aircraft with what they did, it makes me very angry. And I think there are positive things that have happened. The memorial process, like I said, the movie. Those are positive things. They're trying to tell the story in the right way.
Do you mind bringing me some water with my breakfast? I have to take some pills.
Sure, no worries.
One of the most positive things for me, too, is meeting the other family members. It's like having another family. And it's great. I met some wonderful people through all of this, and I'm thankful for that, too. Unfortunately, through such a tragedy, but still, we're like a family. And we stand by one another.
Well, at first I was really hesitant because it's just such a strange thing to have someone portraying not only your loved one, but someone that you've lost in such a tragic way. And it's almost surreal to think that he would be depicted by someone else. And I just didn't want it to just be not callously taking on this, but yeah, well, here's some guy and here's a role and I'm getting paid to be in a movie and blah, blah, blah.
Very important safety demonstration. Whether you're a frequent...
I think it helped a lot that we did make a connection and we spoke on the phone, because it was a wonderful conversation. And I have a picture of him in my mind, although I have absolutely no idea what he looks like.
It feels like it's part of the whole experience, meeting them, It almost completes it. It wouldn't be right, almost, to do this without meeting the family members.
I think I tried so hard, too, to emphasize to him, to Daniel, that there was a lot more to Richard than this one-dimensional kind of U.S. Fish and Wildlife guy in a uniform. And I wanted to see that there was this other side of him that loved music and art and was really funny, had a great sense of humor.
I feel like responsible, and I'm not, for this film, you know?
So I really am looking forward to seeing what he has to say.
Yeah.
And how he relates to us.
Our world.
Yeah, our world.
Hi. It's good to meet you. How you doing?
Really good to meet you.
Meet you too.
Welcome.
Thank you. You're Ross?
Yes.
Hey, I'm Daniel.
Good.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
I know this is so strange.
Yeah, I know.
It's strange. You just look so familiar. You really do. You look so familiar. And this is exactly how he would come. The bag and everything. Hi, come on out. Yeah, come out. This is my cousin Lisa, who is like a sister to me.
Hi,
Nice to meet you.
Nice
Daniel.
to see you. Hey, Daniel. Nice to meet you.
I don't have anything like prepared or anything to tell you or, you
Nor
know.
do I. I was talking to Kate last night, and I was just thinking, God, questions, things to say. I kind of don't even know where to begin. I just know...
It's important we just meet. You know?
Yeah, I mean, because...
See where you live and see your parents and...
I know, and see you, because when I see that film, and I see your face to me, you're holding Richard for us. You're holding him. You're him. And that will ring true for as long as that exists with us.
Yeah.
And it's so important. It's so important.
Yeah.
But I don't want to freak you out in its
No,
importance.
no.
It's a good thing, really. And here they are, the infamous bean chair.
The main characters
out
here.
Careful.
Okay, just be careful. Zola, they're
Are you ready for your close-ups?
This is it.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi.
Mom,
What's
Dad,
going? Hi.
I want you to meet Daniel and just take
Hi.
a
Hi,
look.
Daniel. How are you? Good to see you, buddy.
Daniel.
And this is Miss B.
And I
This is B.
I've had a bad night.
Really?
You said he's a good-looking kid.
I'm glad he's playing Richard's part.
They're similar.
He's so handsome.
Absolutely.
And feel him, Mom. Just take a hug.
Yeah?
Take a hug.
He'll go easy on you.
God.
No squeezing there, then. No squeezing.
You can squeeze all you want.
She's brittle.
You know, yesterday was so cold.
What are you doing? How was your trip?
All right, now.
He was so quiet and understated about his accomplishments. Like, he would be horrified to know that his story was in a newspaper or an article or a film or, I mean, it was just so not what he was about. So there's always this fight in me, you know, that inner person of, gosh, protecting Rich's privacy, which really he would be all about, or defending and keeping his legacy alive, which seems like my sisterly duty.
The letters that we received and all those wonderful messages from people that we never
We
knew.
always thought he was so lonely. And we were always concerned, and yet after 9/11, we've gotten these letters, as B says, from, and we saw this so highly.
So many of those passengers' voices will just evaporate if it isn't for the tenacity of the families to keep it alive and for a storyteller to keep it alive. And so we're so grateful that there is a chance that Richard will not be an invisible passenger in this story.
I can't speak for the film. I can speak for what we did while we were shooting it. I'm sure it's going to be something pretty special, and your hopes will be confirmed.
Back to the airport, all right? Listen, we're going back to the airport. We're trained to deal with the situation, okay? And they'll get us down on the ground, all right? Okay?
I was put in this safe position, and a position that I could go back to my parents, who I feel like I'm constantly trying to protect from everything after 9/11. I mean, that's like my role, you know, now. And I'm the only one that can do that.
I say, too, that our role, B and I, is in protecting you.
Well, you don't have to worry about that.
So it's a mutual thing.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
I feel like I wish I could have met him. Hi, Lord.
Thank you so much. You made such a difference.
Bye, guys. Take care. The realest people I've met in a long time.
I know, it's hard. But we got to meet Daniel. Isn't he nice? I'm gonna miss Daniel already. I know. Come on, let's go through here. Oh, dear.
You know, I was one of the last people that did jump on board. I think the fact that it was so heavily supported by, you know, the entire group of families, and I think with things that do come out about Flight 93, it needs to be an all or none.
This is Peter.
Hi. Hello.
This is Liz.
Nice to meet you.
It's really nice to meet you. Are you as self-conscious as I am, or?
I don't know, I'm usually not on the camera.
You've had quite a lot of practice over the
My
last
practice
few
has done me
weeks.
no good in this situation, so it's really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
In the biggest way I can say it, I hope that that what I did was okay.
You know, I think about what Jeremy would have thought of this all. And, you know, he was just such a boisterous guy with, you know, a personality, you know, that could fill this room. And, you know, his first, you know, kind of comment, I can hear him talking in my head sometimes, he would just love being, you know, as big as the screen, you know? Boy. One of the things that, you know, September 11th takes from you immediately after is, you know, not only did you lose that person that you loved, but you also lost just your future, you know, and being 31 years old in the prime of, you know, family and just having a baby, and you had, you know, dreams of having, you know, a father and a husband and more children, and you essentially lost that for a while, too.
This is me when I was a baby and Jeremy. I'm a baby, and here's Jeremy.
Yeah.
You know, I think at this point, Emmy just really knows basic things. She doesn't know about September 11th, you know, as being a day where over 3,000 people died. But she knows that her father, you know, did die, and he died in a plane crash. But I haven't gone into detail about the role that he played.
We have to go very fast. Absolutely. And I'm gonna get his arm, and I'm gonna break his arm.
You know, it's still very confusing. Where is he? You know, we speak of heaven. You know, she thinks, you know, can I take a balloon and fly up to heaven? So she doesn't really understand that it's a permanent place that you're not coming back from. I worked with a therapist after September 11th, and you know, I really learned a lot from her on how to deal with children. And you know, her advice is really don't give them too much information at one time, and just kind of follow their cues.
What does this one say?
Well, this just talks about the day that your dad died. September 11th, 2001.
What day was he alive still?
Well, all the days before that, right?
What is this?
And this says that there were 5 people from our town, right? There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people.
And we'll never forget them.
That's right. Emmy was the reason that, you know, I got up in the morning. Emmy was the reason why I said, you know what, I'm gonna allow myself to be happy, and I'm gonna find a place to put my feelings, you know, for September 11th, and, you know, feel secure in, you know, the love that I have for Jeremy, and allow myself to, you know, love somebody else. Because that's a healthy way to live life. I think for both of us, you know, making that transition to allow yourself to be happy and to allow yourself to move forward for your life. You know, obviously it still is, it's not something I've really talked about before, but, you know, whereas now I am really in a very happy spot in my life, the path to get there, I think, was one that took a lot of courage on both of our parts, and, you know, just really allowing ourselves and searching inside of what we wanted from our lives, you know, and it wasn't to spend it alone, and so.
Yeah. It just was all, I don't know how to explain it, but it seemed like very natural progression of things. But at the same time, it was conflicting because you're always sort of struggling with the past, a past life. We were all in the same biology class. We all
sat at the same long lab table.
And throughout high school, we all spent the holidays together. Liz's folks had a place up in the mountains where we'd all go skiing. I can't think of many moments without Jeremy or Liz after 14. So.
Yeah. And Jim was actually, I guess, the matchmaker. Jeremy and I had lost touch a little bit after college, and I was living in Colorado, and Jim called and, you know, and got Jeremy and I back together again, and then Jeremy and I were married a year later. I think for Emmy, you know, and really for all of us, that it was a pretty easy transition for, you know, Jim to be Uncle Jim to going to Dad.
Is that fun?
She just has two dads. Yep.
And where'd you get those curly hair? That curly hair from?
Where'd you get the curly hair from?
Jeremy.
Yeah, not for me.
And where'd you get that smile from?
Jeremy.
Yeah.
I would like to have more children. You know, if God gives me that opportunity,
Yeah.
I'd be happy.
Emmy's put in a request for a brother or
and a
sister.
Yeah.
Or both, yeah. I think he'd be proud of us, and we all put our best foot forward, and we're all still very much part of his family, and everybody's together, and it's a really special thing.
Do we have to return this? No, we own this one.
The grieving process is long and slow and different for everybody. And I find that if I have an opportunity to talk about him and the day, it helps me get on with my life. My goal is to see that each and every one of them are remembered equally, you know what I mean? But my basis of knowledge is my brother. I looked up to him and wanted to be like him. When my parents made us do everything together, even with my younger sister, he took his responsibility as being the oldest son to heart. If you were going after something near and dear to his heart, he'd be your worst enemy. It sounds bad, but he was afraid of no man.
Sorry.
Your first thoughts are, how were they treated? Were they, you know, terrorized? Were they belittled? You know, those things go through your mind, like, you know.
Did he stab him?
And then all of a sudden, you realize he wouldn't let that happen to himself. He let no one treat him like a dog. He let no one put him down without a fight.
Buddy, pleasure finally meeting you.
Good seeing you.
I don't talk to you enough on the phone. I know, man. You know?
Yeah.
You look good.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. Yeah, they all told me I look like your brother. They say I could be you. And that's my sister right there.
Is it tough for her to be here?
Yeah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Good seeing you.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
That's the English.
I thought he went out of his way to respect our feelings, which is very important if you're playing, I think, someone's loved one, you know, to get a feel for how the family is going to react. It's your film because it's your loved one, and you want to hold on to that. And, you know, you get selfish saying, he's mine, he's my brother, you know what I mean? He was my idol, you know what I mean? And you want to hold on to that and not share that aspect of him. You know, you want to keep that to yourself. But, and the other turn is just that they're everybody's. They're everybody's family now. What they did that day, they gave themselves to everyone. So a little piece of Joey Nackey is in everyone across this world, and along with everybody else on that flight.
We are sitting in Nicole's room, her bedroom, and pretty much of it's the same as it was when she left on September 6th to go back east. And some of it is things that I've added for, that's people have given me. I would come in here every morning after September 11th and her blinds would be closed and I'd wake up and say, "Good morning, Nicole." And at nighttime I'd say good night, and sorry. It's just part of her. She was just always so happy, and she laughed, her laughter. I could still hear her laughter. I mean, she would just throw her head back, and open her mouth and just, it would make you laugh. She just loved everybody, loved her family, loved her friends, loved life. And I used to tell her, slow down, because she was just always going so fast. She wanted to do everything, see everything. And again, now I'm thankful she didn't slow down, because she did a lot in her 21 years. We'd talk at least 3 times a day. She'd call me, see what I'm doing. She'd stop by my work, bring me something to eat, or a chai tea latte, which was her favorite. Just call me, "Hi, Mom, what are you doing?" And that's what I miss. I miss having that around.
This is Bidwell Park in Chico, California. It's one of our favorite places to be. Spend a lot of time here, especially with Nicole.
And she wasn't even supposed to be there. She was supposed to come home a day early and was held over because of bad weather, and then they put her on that plane. And we were beside ourselves when we found out. But this has been a place of solace, place of rest, and healing for us. I like to think about the good things, and it just kind of ends there. I try not to myself, I get too down. I think about that I won't get to see her get married and do all those things. I don't think that often. I mostly think, boy, she'd love if she was here.
Recently, before she left to go to New York, I knocked on her door and opened her door, and she just jumped up and gave me the biggest kiss and hug. And, and she just kissed me on my lips. And I go, "What was that for?" She goes, "Because I just love you." So that, that was her. So things like that I think about a lot. See her beautiful smile. The picture's faded a little bit, but that's the one I have in the hall.
Well, it always gives me a big lump in my throat to come here.
It did.
Yeah. It's hard to think about all the things that, like the grave site's hard for me to think about, and some of the old movies I have of Nicole. I've not been able to look at those.
I couldn't stand the thought of her going in the ground. That was another thing that really got to me. It was horrible. I mean, I talked to everybody and I'm going, I can't do it. But when the day came and they did, it was like, it was a relief, and it was done.
Sort of our little spot, Like David said, without the trauma of it being a headstone.
I wish I could have maybe traded places with her on the plane or protected her or did something to help her, because I know that must have been really hard on her, because she's a little scaredy cat sometimes. First she'd be frightened, then she'd become angry, and then she probably would get involved. Well, I always wonder, what went on. I've not listened to the tapes, or really I haven't seen any movies on it or anything, because I've just not been able to. But I do want to visit the thoughts and the history of it at some point, but I'm still not there yet. so I haven't been able to do that.
I would see people on the street smiling and laughing and having a good old time, and I thought I would just sit back and go, don't you know what happened? You know, I'm sad, you know, and I used to think that a lot. And I always thought I'm never going to be able to smile or laugh again, because you couldn't feel that anymore. But now you're to the point where you can.
You know, I'm close to some of the mothers. And I remember having a conversation with Diora Bodley's mother, Debbie Borza. It's like, wouldn't it be nice if we were here having a party because they made it, instead of in the first anniversary commemorating the fact that they all perished.
If I think about the fact that my wife and unborn child were brutally murdered, I'd go to a very dark place and be very sad, and it would not be a healthy experience. It's still so important to turn around and go the other direction towards a much brighter day. We were pretty much right where we wanted to be, very happy, very much hitting our stride as a couple and a family, and all that got interrupted.
Jack, are you there? Wake up, sweetie.
I did actually call the FBI to let them know that we had a message from the flight, and they came over and they listened to it, and you know, they got teary-eyed and everything. They wanted to take the message, and then I told them, I said, why? They said they might be able to glean some background noise. There's absolutely no background noise on her message. You can't hear people screaming or yelling or crying. It's very calm. The whole cabin, in the background, there's really very little sound.
I just love you more than anything. Know that. I'll please tell my family I love them too. Bye, honey.
And so I told them that I didn't want to release it because I didn't want it out there. And at the time, you know, it took many years before I finally agreed to allow it to be aired, because it, you know, it was a special private message. But the more I learned that people were inspired by that, the more I realized maybe it is a gift I should share. There was a reporter from the Chronicle that asked me, he said, you know, do you want bin Laden dead? And I don't know where it came from. I was just, you know, in shock. But I said, I don't hate anybody I don't know. I mean, that's prejudice. That's what they did. They hated and killed innocent people they didn't know. So to say that I hate bin Laden, I want him dead, would be no better than them. So, you know, my anger wasn't so much at people I didn't know. My anger was at the circumstances that allowed this to happen, quite frankly. Could we have prevented September 11th? I don't think so. Could we have prevented the devastation? I do believe so.
I think it is so hard to capture who a person was if you weren't sitting across from him, looking into his, you know, beautiful, sparkling, intelligent blue eyes. It's really hard to describe who he was.
I remember he would take me and my friends rock climbing. Whenever we were afraid, he would say the rock is your friend.
He wasn't necessarily so into a particular sport as just making sure we were having a good time. It's something that I enjoy doing, and I know she gets enjoyment out of it as well, so I want to make sure that she's having every opportunity that I had growing up. I don't see it as a responsibility. I mean, she's my sister, and I have to love her. Good? You gonna do another one?
No.
No?
I think Sonali, you know, thinks about Alan, I'm sure, every day, many times a day. We all do.
En route time today is 5 hours and 25 minutes.
What I don't want to happen after the movie is released is like what happened after the event, not like how I feel, but like I don't want everyone calling for interviews. Like I don't want to have to think about it that much.
We're really feeling it's time to start something new and fresh, so we're moving in a month. Most of our friends and community here were Alan's friends and community, and well, that's been incredible, and we love them, and their support has helped us in such a profound way. But I think it will be good for us to live somewhere where people don't identify us that way. We're moving to a smaller town in Southern California. Sonali wants to be near the beach.
Almost had to handle it on two different levels. In one regard, it was personal. On the other side, it was so public, and we had to stand in front of cameras, and you sort of, in that moment, feel so detached from it.
Hi, Simon. Nice to meet you. Come in.
I feel like I've gained quite a bit of closure in the past few years, and it makes it much easier to talk about, because it's not a sensitive subject. It took me halfway around the world, and I traveled for quite a long time, and in hindsight, I was really running away, which I think was healthy, and I'm glad I had a chance to do that.
What would you hope to get out of it, out of seeing it? Would there be some sort of feeling of a memorial to your father, some sort of, I don't know.
I think I'll see it more out of interest than anything else, just curiosity. Yeah.
She would shoot out of here every morning, you know, with her Skyway bag, you know, on wheels. She always made it there on time, but she was always kind of running late. She would just come out with coat flying like a cape, you know. She looked Cape Crusader, you know. She'd come flying out, heading off to the airport with her hat, you know. And she was like that. She was like a comic book character. She was big as life, you know. She was, you know, super flight attendant. I was in bad shape. I crawled into the bottle. I was just getting drunk all the time. It was a mess. Many people came to my aid, and Barbara was one of them. She helped me do things I could not do. Debbie's shoes were on the floor for months. Her clothes on the back of the door in the bathroom. I couldn't do anything about that. We went out to eat, you know, a few times. You know, we talked about Debbie, but mostly talked about things uplifting, you know, reignite your sense of humor. The more I was able to talk about my pain and what I went through, the more she helped. I mean, it wasn't like we were looking for it to happen. This was our parish here in Manhattan. Debbie was in the choir. I was a lector here. It was a wonderful home for us. We had Debbie's memorial service here. The entire cathedral was packed. It was a sea of blue uniforms. People flew all over the country. Flight attendants, not just United Airlines, American Airlines, other airlines. The church and the community here was a tremendous help for me. Because everything seemed like chaos to me. Everything was just anarchy. And this was peace. This is the only place I had peace.
Welcome aboard. Is that the last one?
It's a difficult thing for me. I knew Debbie. But I also know Debbie was one of the first to be executed, killed. We have you know, certain evidence from the tapes of what that was and how that went down. It's just hard for me that people need to know how courageous she was.
It's nice to be here, and I'm about to meet Diora's mother, and I'm pretty nervous, but excited. Excited, of course.
I can't wait to go to waste of jokes.
Hi, how are you? Good morning.
Obviously, I'm not her daughter, and she's not expecting me to be, so hopefully she'll like me. I guess I just want her to like me. Just a basic, fundamental human thing, I suppose.
Yes.
How are you?
Maybe it's time for her to meet Diora.
Meet Diora? Oh, the cloisonne.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, here's Diora.
Oh, here's Diora. We had, there were about 15 parts of her that were found. Wow. So, you know, we had her cremated. And I had asked my family and some of her friends if they were interested in having any of her remains. And we all met in Somerset. And it was really funny. On the ride home, my parents took her with them back to North Carolina. They had their own little cloisonne, and they had strapped her in the back seat, you know, in the seatbelt. And when they got to North Carolina, you know, my parents would always call me to say that they got home okay. So they gave me a call and they said, your daughter, all the way home. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And, you know, and I knew right away that, you know, everybody was just feeling really, like, okay. Like, they really got that they still had her with them. And, you know, it just really brought my family closer together because of that. I have a little pendant here. There's some ashes at here. I always carry her around with me. So, and some of them have teardrops. Oh, here's Muriel's little. This is Muriel's.
That's beautiful.
She's never far away. That was the.
It's Diora's.
Here,
Look
look
at
at
that.
Diora. She always wanted tattoos and she wanted piercings, and I said, listen, when you leave this house and you're on your own, you can do whatever you like to do, you know. So after she died and the FBI calls and they want to know, you know, identifying marks and, you know, tell us about if you knew what she was wearing. And to sit there with the FBI and to say, well, she had a shooting star tattoo on, yeah. And, you know, her navel was pierced and, you know, her tongue was pierced. And it's like, oh my, you know, it's like, what kind of child do I have?
We all kind of on our own, like, came up with this idea, like, I want to get a tattoo for Diora. So I ended up just doing, like, a D right here. Yeah. So see, it gets big, little, big. And we always called her Big D, Big D. Yeah. Really, it entertains me for days.
When the funeral home brought her belongings to the house, they had it all wrapped up and labels with stickers on them and what was inside all of the bags. And
the fact that she had all of those people with her on this flight, I mean, I wouldn't have had all that in my purse if that had happened to me, you know?
She had the everyday, athletics.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I mean, geez, none of us still had this in our wallet when we were 20.
Definitely not in my wallet. Well, it looks to me like this is a 7th grade journal, or is middle school, just by the friends she mentions. But the very last entry of the book where it ends, taken just as the sun rises, broken in pieces, all black and burned. I can't see the way anymore. My eyes burn with tears that bleed inside and fade as quickly as the light. Dying is the only truth I understand. So many are born to an unknown, and so many die to what they believe in. My life is taken, and I am as lost as a man on a clear day, standing in the vein on a plane of a different life. I am lifted to a crash site. Everyone is crying, but I stare at the body and laugh in an effortless way. The gun is gone, and know this way of solace on a plane of life. And then there's a picture. That was a crash site. Yeah. Well, it's like something fallen from the sky, isn't it? It's like something's falling. It's a tree and then
the most difficult thing for me, like personally for me when I read things like that, is that I didn't know. I just didn't know I was raising a girl like that, until I started reading this. And to be responsible for having a daughter like that is, I think that's what hurts the most, is now that she's gone, and to read this and to get that I was responsible for that, and I can't. I don't get to see what results. I just don't get to see the results of that. All that she, could have become. And I just have no clue what that would have been. I mean, I read this and I go, gosh, And then I stop and I think about, even right now, where we're all together and we get to talk about her, and I'm real clear that she is just living inside of all of us. And
I've always admired all the positive things that you've done and the lack of, I don't know, anger and fury.
From the beginning, from the very beginning, you
I
were
remember all
like
of us were like falling apart, and you were just like there with your arms open, taking care of all of us.
Still
We need you.
Purely selfish on my part. I mean, no, really, because it's the only way I get to have my daughter back.
Yeah.
I must admit, I'm really anxious to meet Elsa. After talking to her for so long on the phone, and with Doris, after meeting her, I'm anxious for everyone to meet Doris. She's so wonderful and positive.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I can just see where Linda got her zest for life and that wonderful interest in so many things.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Oh, how lovely to see you.
I bonded with Elsa very quickly on the phone. I sort of feel I know her, and yet I don't.
And I got home, and I turned the TV on the way to the phone machine, and they were showing these smoldering sight, But they had the wrong flight number down initially. I don't remember what they had, but I knew her flight number because she had told me that morning. First message was my mom saying, honey, have you heard from Linda? And then one of my friends left me a message, and then the third message was Linda. And then I just didn't know that was her flight. So I'm thinking, there's so many planes up there, she's still up there, and she's hijacked, but she's still up there. And so I called United. Who else am I going to call, I wanted them to know that one of their planes that she had just called. And so I eventually got through. They gave me a family number to call, and I eventually got through. And while I was waiting, they changed the flight number on the TV. So I say that it was a gift because the one thing that we had that thousands of people, at least hundreds of people in New York didn't have, was the certainty that she was gone. We didn't have to walk around New York for 3 weeks thinking at any moment maybe they're gonna come home, And we knew, Yeah.
But I'd like to spend a little bit of time this morning talking about the future and how we're going to get there. Also, I'd like to describe to you a little bit about why BMW regards hydrogen-powered engines as our most important long-term development project? Well, we believe that hydrogen actually is the clean energy alternative for the future. And of course, I could stand up here and tell you a lot about, oh, it's the lightest element, and it's readily found in the environment, and go into full chemist geekdom, but I will spare you that.
Really is. I give her a hug.
That was a good speech.
The first time I saw it, you know, I went, just touch it.
That was a wonderful time for Linda. To me, it's a matter of reevaluating your life. And that's certainly one thing that Linda's death did for me. She was a risk taker, you know. I mean, she was very about safety, but she was a big risk taker. And I think that's probably what I had not really done a lot of in my life. I'm no longer married to my ex-husband. I changed careers, went back to school to become a massage therapist. She's been with me every step of the way, through all the really difficult times, at times almost palpably so. I felt her arm around me. I literally did. And
yeah, I've been poked. I think my first toast will be to the girl that we're talking about, Linda.
To Dita.
And then I have to toast my daughter, Lorna. We are very blessed that you have done the role, but then to meet you and know you, just wonderful.
I can't wait to go to waste of. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that would be great. Thanks a lot.
And I want to say a toast to Joe DeLuca.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Who my boys would have loved to get to know better. And I'm sorry that I didn't get to know him as a brother. But I know that they were together.
They were together.
And I'm happy about that.
However much you talk to people about what it's going to be like or what the process has been, I think actually watching it is always going to be quite difficult.
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of anticipation, a lot of anxiety, a lot of reliving the event, a lot of trauma. It's, you know, it's like being there all over again. I'm thankful that we're able to see it before the public sees it. I really am, because it's tough when something is sprung on you and you hear about it in the news or you see it on TV. So when you have an opportunity to either hear or see something ahead of time, it's really very helpful.
And, you know, and I think the families are probably your hardest critics, you know, and probably the people that you want to please or not upset, you know, the most, you know, I would say out of anybody.
And at least, you know, I think for the families, this film is going to be a real legacy for us and who knows, generations beyond that. It's going to hold some sort of truth.
I poured so much out of our soul into the actor. And, you know, my fear is what will I see? What kind of emotions will it bring?
Yeah, it's a fresh kick in the gut. You know, no question. Well, it will not be easy, and with all respect, I mean, I'm still not sure I'm going to watch it, but I think that what you have done as a group has been admirable in terms of all the communication. So, you know, I'll probably be there.
I'm not really sure if I could stay all the way through it because it was very painful
and it brings back some strong memories, but I am also to the point where I want to know a little more of the story myself.
Just to see her name, like at an end of a movie, is very hard for me. But I know it's important.
I don't want them to be left with how sad and oh, those poor people, and I want them to go, my God, you know, like when I grow up, I want to be just like those people. You know, I really want them to walk away with that.
I am looking forward to it. I know it's just the scope of it in terms of a major feature film.
Just the fact that this movie's being made has stirred up so many feelings that are difficult to deal with. But it's cathartic too, in a way. You need to go through it and cry about it again and relive it. But that's a step. Every time you do it, it makes you a little bit stronger, a little bit more able to keep going.
Yeah, another year and a half.
We're close knit. We're a close group. We're a family, and we'll be bonded forever.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. This has been the great privilege of our working life to spend this year sharing this journey with you, being inspired by you and this story. Rightly, this film is for you to judge. And thank you for all your help and cooperation and love. And I'll speak to you afterwards.
ومساكن طيبة في جنات عدن ورضوان من الله أكبر.
My anxiety, my nervousness is over. It's been, it was very sad, but again, we live through this daily. And I think this is the first movie where Paul, you, and Lloyd have been very sincere in what you've done. And I think it portrayed pretty much the truth as we know it. And I think it was a good job. I'd like to thank you for that.
It met my expectations. It might have exceeded my expectations in the reality of it, but I do believe that what was portrayed here really took place on the flight, and I'm very grateful that through this film that was shown in a very realistic way for us. I mean, although painful, I think, you know, we need to experience what our loved ones experienced and just to know why they need to be honored and remembered.
The film put me on the plane, in my perspective, and you truly did what I asked. I mean, you didn't treat them as victims, and they're truly not. And I hate that word more and more.
You know, Corey did a great job being our Superman. So
true.
I think it's too easy for people to forget, and it's not too soon. And it's disturbing to me when I hear our fellow countrymen say, "How dare you, it's too soon." Well, you know what, it's never gonna be soon enough. And we have an obligation to continue to pass this on for generations to come.
This month particular is difficult because it would have been the 4th birthday of our child. So when this movie comes out, obviously it's the same month. It's doubly difficult, but it's nothing that you don't go through every day since 4.5 years ago.
It was haunting. It was certainly well done. I felt very much like I was on the plane with my daughter. But I had this one next to me, so she held me together. But I want the whole world to see this film.
But I'm most thankful that it's going out there for people to see. And I really want people to know the story So I'm glad that it's out there. I just couldn't see all the hard scenes myself.
It was numbing. You know, it was very, very painful. It was very vivid. It was very real. But I can't imagine it being portrayed any other way. That was exactly how I had dreamed it in my head, I think, for years, and it was just executed
I think we both had,
perfectly.
Sure.
No fluff, no sentiment, and it couldn't have been done that way, because I think I wouldn't have left as satisfied as I feel now.
I thought it was outstanding. My first impression was I was very proud. One of almost meditative, you know, reflection on of what it was like, you know, for all, and especially Debbie.
I think he did a very good job of not making it, you know, overly dramatic or overly Hollywood. I think he gave great respect to the families, and the movie made me cry, obviously, which is something that the other movies about September 11th had not made me do. You know, if anything, I'd be watching them and almost, not laughing, but really focusing on the inaccuracies. And, you know, for someone who had never met Jeremy, he has a lot of the same mannerisms as him.
Internally, I'm a little more quiet. I'm more relaxed. Finally. Again, I really think it's because I don't have to, you know, campaign or for those people on the plane anymore. You know, Paul and, you know, the picture, you know, speaks volumes, at least for me. And I'm really thankful now I have another, you know, tool in my bag to accompany me when I talk about, you know, Diora or anyone else on that flight, or when I talk about Flight 93, or I talk about September the 11th.
What's your final thought? Peace. Did it bring you peace? Did it bring you peace? It brought me peace. Little peace. Doesn't get much better than that, does it?